It was pouring rain when I returned from the cemetery. The dirt was fresh on my husband's grave. I could still smell the lilies from the service. White lilies, his favorite. I'd picked them out myself 3 days earlier while his body was still at the morgue. I pulled into the driveway at 4:47 p.m. The house looked the same, red brick, black shutters. The porch light was on even though it wasn't dark yet. I walked up the steps with my purse over my shoulder and my keys in my hand. The brass key slid into the lock. I turned it. Nothing. I tried again. The key went in, but the lock wouldn't budge. I stood there in the rain, water dripping off the edge of my coat, and I stared at the door like it was a stranger. Then I saw her. My mother. She was standing in the living room, just past the foyer. She was holding a mug. My mug. The one with the chipped handle that I'd used every morning for the last 6 years. She was sipping tea. Our eyes met through the window. She shook her head, slowly, left to right. Then she mouthed 2 words, "It's mine." I didn't move. I just stood there on the porch, rain soaking through my dress, and watched her walk away from the window. She thought she'd won. She thought that breaking me while I was a widow would work. She didn't know that when the sun went down, a clause in his will would activate. So I didn't scream. I didn't bang on the door. I walked over to the porch swing, sat down, and checked my watch. 5:02 p.m. Sunset in Chicago in late October is 6:14 p.m. I had 1 hour and 12 minutes. So I sat on the wet swing, folded my hands in my lap, and waited. Let me tell you how I got here. My name is Nancy, and my mother has always hated me. Not the kind of hate you see in movies where there's screaming and tears and dramatic confrontations. No, this was the quiet kind. The kind that lives in the pauses between sentences, the kind that shows up in a cold smile when you tell her good news. She hated me because I got out. I left the South Side, I went to college, I married a man who didn't drink himself to sleep every night, and she never forgave me for it. My husband's name was Garrett. He was 42 when he died. Heart attack. No warning. He was in the garage fixing the latch on the side gate when he collapsed. I found him 20 minutes later. The paramedics said he was already gone. The funeral was small. Garrett didn't have much family. It was me, his business partner, a few people from his firm, and my mother. She showed up in black, of course, but she didn't cry. She sat in the back row and watched me like I was a performance. After the service, she came up to me in the parking lot. "You holding up?" she asked. I nodded. "Good," she said, "because we need to talk about the house." I stared at her. "The house?" "Your father co-signed the mortgage when you and Garrett bought it," she said. "That means I have a claim." "That was 14 years ago," I said. "Dad's been dead for 6. She smiled. Not a warm smile. A smile like a knife. "Doesn't matter," she said. "I talked to a lawyer. I'm entitled." I didn't argue. I just walked to my car and left. That was 3 days ago, and now here I was, locked out of my own house, sitting on a porch swing in the rain. But I wasn't panicking, because Garrett was smarter than anyone gave him credit for. Garrett and I met in 2010. I was 26, working as a paralegal at a corporate law firm on Michigan Avenue. He was a client. He owned a logistics company. Small operation, 3 trucks, a warehouse near O'Hare. He came in to draft a partnership agreement. He was polite, professional, but there was something about the way he listened when you talked, like he was actually hearing you. We started dating 4 months later. We got married a year after that. He wasn't rich, not back then, but he was smart. He worked 80-hour weeks, he hired good people, he took risks. By 2015, his company was worth $4 million. By 2020, it was worth $12 million. We bought the house in 2011, a 3-bedroom bungalow in Edison Park. My father co-signed because Garrett's credit was still rebuilding from a bad business loan in his 20s. My father died in 2019. Cancer. My mother got the life insurance payout. $85,000. She spent it in 2 years. New car, vacations, a condo in Schaumburg that she couldn't afford to maintain. By 2023, she was broke. She started calling me. At first, it was small things. Can you lend me $200 for the electric bill? Can you cover my car payment this month? I said yes. Every time. Garrett told me to stop. He's using you, he said. She's my mother, I said. He didn't push it, but I could see the frustration in his face. Then, 6 months ago, my mother showed up at the house unannounced. It was a Saturday. Garrett and I were in the kitchen. He was making coffee. I was reading the paper. The doorbell rang. I opened it. She was standing there with a suitcase. She said, "I need to stay here for a while." I said, "What?" She said, "I got evicted. I have nowhere else to go." I looked at Garrett. He looked at me. He said, 2 weeks, that's it. She stayed for 4 months. She didn't pay rent. She didn't buy groceries. She sat in the guest room and watched TV and complained about everything. The Wi-Fi was too slow. The house was too cold. The neighborhood was too quiet. Garrett finally had enough. He said she has to go one night after she'd gone to bed. "I know," I said. He said, "I mean it, Nancy. I'll tell her myself if you won't." "I will," I said. "I just need to find the right time." But I didn't. And then Garrett was gone. The day after the funeral, my mother cornered me in the kitchen. She said, "We need to talk about the estate." I said, "Not now." She said, "Yes, now. I'm your mother. I deserve to know what you're getting." I turned to look at her. "What I'm getting?" She said, "From the will. The company, the house, the accounts." "That's none of your business," I said. Her face went cold. She said, "I co-signed this house. That makes it my business." I said, "Dad co-signed it, not you." She smiled. That same knife smile. "We'll see about that," she said. 2 days later, I came home to find her sitting in the living room with a man in a cheap suit. She said, "This is Roger, my lawyer." Roger stood up and shook my hand. "Mrs. Calloway?" he said. "I'm sorry for your loss." I said, "Thank you." He said, "Your mother has asked me to review the deed to this property. Based on the cosigner clause, she may have a legal claim to a percentage of the equity." I looked at my mother. She was smiling. I said, "This is insane." He said, "It's the law." I said, "Get out." Roger hesitated. "Ma'am?" I said. "Get out of my house." He left. My mother didn't. That night, I sat in Garrett's office. It was a small room off the kitchen. He used it for paperwork, bills, contracts, tax documents. I opened his filing cabinet and pulled out the folder labeled Will and Estate. I'd read it before, right after he drafted it, but I'd never paid close attention to the details. I read it again, slowly, line by line, and that's when I found it. Clause 17B. In the event of the testator's death, full ownership of the primary residence located in 7429 North Oriole Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, shall transfer to the surviving spouse at sunset on the day of the testator's interment, provided the surviving spouse is present at the property at the time of transfer. Any claims to the property by third parties, including co-signers or their estates, shall be rendered null and void upon transfer. I read it 3 times. Then I checked the time. It was 11:34 p.m. The funeral had been that morning. Sunset tomorrow was 6:14 p.m. I had 1 hour and 12 minutes. So I sat on the wet swing, folding my hands in my lap, and waited. The next morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. My mother was already in the kitchen. She was making breakfast: eggs, toast, coffee. She looked up when I walked in. "Morning," she said. "Morning," I said. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down at the table. She sat across from me. "Sleep okay?" she asked. "Fine," I said. She nodded. We ate in silence. I could feel her watching me, waiting for me to break. But I didn't. I just ate my eggs and drank my coffee and scrolled through my phone. At 8:30 a.m., she stood up. "I'm going out," she said. "I'll be back this afternoon." "Okay," I said. She left. The second the door closed, I went upstairs. I opened the drawer in her nightstand. Inside was a stack of papers, legal documents. I pulled them out and read through them. There was a petition to claim a stake in the property, a letter from Roger outlining her case, and a deed transfer form, already filled out, ready to file. I took photos of everything with my phone. Then I put it all back exactly where I'd found it. At 10 a.m., I called Garrett's lawyer. His name was Paul Mercer. He was the one who'd drafted the will. "Nancy," he said when he picked up, "how are you holding up?" "I'm fine," I said. "I need to ask you about the will." "Of course," he said. "Clause 17B, the sunset transfer." "Yes," he said. "Garrett was very specific about that." "Why?" Paul paused. "He told me he didn't trust your mother," he said. "He thought she might try to make a claim on the house after he died." "He was right," I said. "I'm sorry," Paul said. "Do you need me to come over?" "No," I said. "I just need to know if the clause is enforceable." "It is," he said. "As long as you're at the property at sunset, the house transfers to you. No exceptions." "What if someone changes the locks?" "Doesn't matter," he said. "You don't have to be inside, you just have to be on the property." "Good," I said. "Nancy," he said, "is everything okay?" "It will be," I said. I hung up. At 2 p.m., my mother came home. She was carrying shopping bags. "Got some groceries," she said. "Thanks," I said. She put them away. Then she sat down at the table. "I've been thinking about the house." "Okay," I said. "I think it's best if you move out," she said. I looked at her. "Excuse me?" "This house has too many memories," she said. "You need a fresh start." "I'm not moving out," I said. "You don't have a choice," she said. "I talked to Roger. The deed is being transferred to me." "On what grounds?" I said. "The cosigner clause. Your father had a stake in this house. That stake passes to me." "That's not how it works," I said. She smiled. "It is now," she said. At 3:30 p.m., she went upstairs. I heard her in the guest room, moving things around, packing. At 4 p.m., she came back downstairs with a duffel bag. "I'm going to run some errands," she said. "I'll be back in a few hours." "Okay," I said. She left. The waited 10 minutes. Then I went upstairs and checked the guest room. Her clothes were still in the closet. Her toiletries were still in the bathroom. She wasn't going anywhere. She was setting me up. At 4:30 p.m., I got in my car and drove to the funeral home. The service had been held there that morning. I parked in the lot and walked inside. The director was at the front desk. "Mrs. Calloway?" he said. "Can I help you?" "I need a copy of the interment certificate," I said. "Of course," he said. He printed it out and handed it to me. It was official, signed, dated. Date of interment, October 24th, 2024, 11 a.m. I folded it and put it in my purse. Then I drove back to the cemetery. I stood at Garrett's grave. The dirt was still fresh. I didn't cry. I just stood there and looked at the headstone. Garrett Thomas Calloway, 1982 2024. Husband, visionary, gone too soon. I miss you, I said out loud. Then I got back in my car and drove home. I pulled into the driveway at 4:47 p.m. The rain was coming down hard. I walked up to the porch. I slid my key into the lock. It didn't turn. I stood there for a second, staring at the door. Then I saw her, my mother, standing in the living room, holding my mug, sipping my tea. She looked up at me through the window, and she shook her head. No. She mouthed the word slowly. It's mine. I didn't react. I just walked over to the porch swing, sat down, and checked my watch. 5:02 p.m. The sun was at 6:14 p.m. I had 1 hour and 12 minutes. At 5:15 p.m., my mother opened the door. She stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. You can't stay here, she said. I didn't say anything. I changed the locks, she said. This house is mine now. I looked at her. Okay, I said. She frowned. Okay? Yeah, okay. She didn't know what to say to that. You're not going to fight me? She asked. No, I said. She stared at me. Then she smiled. Good, she said. I'll have your things packed by the end of the week. She went back inside and closed the door. I stayed on the swing. I checked my watch. 5:23 p.m. At 5:45 p.m., the rain stopped. The clouds started to break apart. I could see the sun behind them, orange and red. At 6 p.m., my mother opened the door again. You're still here? She said. Yeah, I said. You need to leave, she said. I'm not on your property. I'm on the porch. The porch is part of the house, she said. Actually, the porch is part of the exterior structure, which means it's part of the primary residence, which means I'm exactly where I need to be. She stared at me. What are you talking about? I didn't answer. I just checked my watch. 6:08 p.m. At 6:12 p.m., the sun was touching the horizon. My mother stepped out onto the porch. What are you doing? She said. I looked at her. Waiting, I said. For what? I smiled. For sunset, I said. Her face went pale. What? I pulled the folded papers out of my purse. The will, the interment certificate, the deed. I handed them to her. Clause 17, B. Read it. She unfolded the papers. Her hands were shaking. She read. I watched her face change. Confusion. Realization. Panic. No, she said. Yes, I said. This isn't legal, she said. It is, I said. I checked. She looked at me. You can't do this, she said. I already did, I said. At 6:14 p.m., the sun dropped below the horizon. I stood up. The house is mine, I said, as of right now. She didn't move. You need to leave, I said. This is my house, she said. No, I said, it's not. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I can call the police, I said, or you can walk out on your own. She stared at me. Her face was red. Her jaw was clenched. You're just like your father, she said. Thank you, I said. She turned and walked back inside. 2 minutes later, she came out with her duffel bag. She didn't look at me. She just walked down the steps, got in her car, and drove away. I stood on the porch and watched her taillights disappear down the street. Then I pulled out my phone and called a locksmith. I need the locks changed, I said. Tonight? He said. Perfect, I said. I hung up. Then I went inside. The house was quiet. I went to the kitchen. I made a cup of tea. I sat at the table, and I drank it slowly. The locksmith came at 7:30 p.m. He changed every lock in the house. Front door, back door, side gate, garage. He handed me the new keys. "You're all set," he said. I paid him in cash. Then I locked the door behind him and went upstairs. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. I didn't cry. I just sat there. The next morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. The house was silent. I made coffee. I sat at the kitchen table, and I opened my laptop. I pulled up my email. There was a message from Paul Mercer. "Nancy, confirming that the property transfer has been finalized. The deed is now solely in your name. If your mother attempts to file any claims, let me know immediately. Paul." I replied, "Thank you." Then I opened a new tab and searched for estate liquidation companies. Garrett's business was worth $12 million. His business partner, Aaron, had the right of first refusal to buy out Garrett's share. I called him. "Nancy," he said, "how are you?" "I'm fine," I said. "I want to sell."
"The company?" he said. "Yes," I said. He paused. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said. "Okay," he said. "I'll have my lawyer draw up an offer." "Good," I said. We finalized the deal 3 weeks later. Aaron bought out Garrett's 60% stake for $7.2 million. After taxes and legal fees, I walked away with $5.1 million. My mother tried to call me 17 times in the first week. I didn't answer. She left voicemails. "You can't do this to me. I'm your mother. You owe me." I deleted every single one. On the 10th day, she showed up at the house. I saw her through the window. She was standing on the porch. She rang the doorbell. I didn't answer. She knocked. I didn't move. She started yelling, "Open the door, Nancy!" I sat on the couch and waited. After 5 minutes, she left. I called Paul. "I need a restraining order," I said. "Consider it done," he said. The order was granted 2 days later. My mother was prohibited from coming within 500 feet of me or the property. She violated it once. She was arrested. She spent the night in jail. She didn't try again. I sold the house 6 months later. I didn't need it anymore. I bought a condo in Lincoln Park, 15th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A view of the lake. I started a consulting firm. Contract negotiation, estate planning, corporate logistics. I used Garrett's contacts, his reputation, his knowledge. Within a year, I had 12 clients. Within 2 years, I had 40. I didn't need the money, but I liked the work. I saw my mother one more time. It was 3 years after Garrett died. I was at a coffee shop on Clark Street. She was sitting at a table by the window. She looked older, thinner. Her hair was grayer. She saw me. We made eye contact. She didn't smile. Neither did I. I walked past her and ordered my coffee. When I turned around, she was gone. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, kicking her out, cutting her off. I don't. Not for a second. Garrett used to say that people show you who they are when they think you're not looking. My mother showed me. She thought I was weak. She thought I was broken. She thought that losing Garrett would make me easy to control. She was wrong. Garrett taught me a lot of things. How to negotiate, how to plan, how to protect yourself. But the most important thing he taught me was this. Trust is earned, and once it's gone forever. My mother tried to take everything from me. She tried to take my home. She tried to take my dignity. She tried to take the one thing I had left of the man I loved. But she forgot one thing. Garrett didn't just leave me the house. He left me the tools to fight back. And I did. I sat on that porch in the rain. I watched the sun go down, and I took back what was mine. Not because I'm cruel, but because I refuse to be a victim. So if you ever find yourself locked out of your own life, remember this. The people who underestimate you are the ones who lose, because they're not paying attention. And by the time they realize their mistake, it's already too late. My mother learned that the hard way. And I didn't lose a single night of sleep over it. If you made it this far, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. And drop a comment telling me what you would have done in my position. Because I guarantee you, the revenge you're imagining doesn't come close to what I did. Thanks for watching.